Good morning, tactical aficionados. I am Damian Darko, and you are watching Penn State Tactical, where it's not illegal if you don't get caught. Oh, wow, our good old friend, the 44 Magnum, the most powerful Freedom Seed dispenser in the world in the 1950s, carried by such legends as Clint Eastwood and Leon S. Kennedy himself. Unfortunately, this one's a replica because my state sucks, but what it does allow is our old friend, the Remington 1858 black powder. So, begs the question, can you charge these bad boys right here with these chonky-ass cylinders up to the power of the legendary 44 Magnum? And the short answer is no. It will definitely blow off this finger and this finger if I try, because I would definitely have to put smokeless Freedom Seed dispenser powder into these chambers, which you really can't do. But you can get a good amount of black powder in here. When I say a good amount, what I'm talking about is about 40 grains of modern-day 777 black powder substitute on top of, or behind some, 200 grain solid lead Freedom Seeds. Yeah, this bad boy is loaded about to the maximum, the physical maximum of what I can get in here, and I'm kind of hoping that the lawyers that to create these things over in Italy, the replicas, have kind of underestimated their true potential on paper in order to stop people from doing stupid things like overcharging them with too much exploding boom boom powder. I'm going to overcharge it with too much exploding boom boom powder anyway, because I want to know how fast I can get this thing going over the old chrono, and if we can get somewhere in the ballpark of the lauded 500 foot-pounds per square inch threshold, which is a pretty good indicator that you have a man-stopper. I'm sorry, a zombie, Susan, zombie thwarter on your hands. So let's get out to the field with the chronograph and see if we can turn this black powder beauty into a black powder Magnum. All right, tactical aficionados, we're at site, God, what is it, E this time? I don't even know anymore. And I got the chronograph set up about 10 feet away from me. I'm going to keep the camera on me for the first shot and just read off the reading if we get one. That way, if this thing explodes, we at least get it on camera. Ooh! 1,097 feet per second. Let's get you guys closer to the action. That wasn't a good reading. Nope. Are any of these actually reading? All right, we got two more. Let's see, is it gonna do anything? All right, we got one good reading. Oh, I missed what that said because of the smoke. I'm gonna check it on camera when I get a chance. One more. Oh no! Oh, the chronograph! Did that say 1,174 feet per second? May or may not be accurate. The chronograph has fallen. The chronograph has fallen. Oh my God! Well, it's happened again, tactical aficionados, although this time it might be able to be salvaged. It looks to be. Yeah, I don't know about this. Like, one of our Freedom Seeds just barely maybe nicked the chrono. I'm almost surprised it didn't cut it in half. That last reading was 1,174. God knows if that was accurate. The one before that was still over 1,000 feet per second. So I'm going to go back on camera. I believe we had 3 readings out of the 6. One I wasn't able to see, and we're going to calculate them all up. Try to get an average out of those 3, high and low, give you a general foot-pounds per second. Foot-pounds per square inch. The cursed Band State Tactical Chronograph. Well, all right, tactical aficionados. I've been running some numbers to the old ballistics calculator. I gotta tell you, the results that I'm getting are encouraging enough that I think it might even be worth the continued torment of the Band State Tactical Chronograph. Before I even get into them, this thing is hitting much, much harder than I realistically expected it to. I've gotten some numbers during previous tests where I put a 140 grain round ball over a chronograph and got, I think it was like 690 something, you know, a little less than 700 feet per second. And when I put the 200 grain over the chronograph, I said, why does it feel so much stouter? Why does it feel like it's moving faster? It must have something to do with the compression of the black powder, or in this case, the black powder alternative we were using, which is Hodgdon's 777. And no, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I'm going to tell you right now, I found that this stuff is burning cleaner than the, well, standard Pyrex I was using, which I know is not black powder. And it's giving me more pressure, more feet per second, and doesn't seem to be causing any kind of issues or damage to any of our Freedom Seed dispensers. I gave this thing a little quick over inspection. It seems to be holding up just fine. The 40 grains of that 777 did not have any negative effect on it that I could tell, but we got some interesting effects on paper here. So there were 3 readings. I was only able to see 2 of them. So what that middle reading is, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to go back and check when I can check this on a bigger screen and maybe isolate it. If that's the case, I'm going to be putting that information right here. If I don't see it, I'm just going to be reading off the 2 numbers I got. And the 2 numbers I got on there were 1,097 feet per second with a 200 grain Freedom Seed. And excuse me for having to use that language, it's YouTube. And the second number I got, which was a little bit shocking out of this, especially out of this 5.5 inch barrel, was 1,174 feet per second with a 200 grain pure lead Freedom Seed. Those are pretty impressive, but to give you some context, I've actually thrown down some ballistics from more well-known Freedom Seed dispensers that y'all might know. So for example, 45 ACP, 230 grain Freedom Seed, moving at around 850 feet per second, kind of a classic old school load, comes out to a foot poundage of about 368 foot-pounds per square inch. Okay, not bad. 9mm Freedom Seed, 115 grains, moving at 1,200 feet per second, much faster, also much lighter. 367 feet per second, that particular load. Obviously, you could push those things a lot faster. These are just baseline stuff I got off the internet. 357 Magnum with a 4-inch barrel, because you can check the ballistics based on barrel, and you need to check, are you a 4, a 6, a 2? It's important, gentlemen. With the 4-inch barrel, this particular load that's being listed here, Federal Hydroshock, 158 grain. Oh, excuse me, I'm editing. Freedom Seed. Freedom Seed, Susan. Moving at 1,248 feet per second, is getting a pretty stout 546 foot-pounds of energy. Those are all really good numbers. And I'm going to tell you, obviously the joke about the 44, we were never going to beat Clint Eastwood's Baby Girl. Okay, that wasn't going to happen. But we got some numbers here. Oh my God. So the 1,097 feet per second with the 200 grain Freedom Seed, according to the calculator I used, and I didn't quite measure for distance, so this is presumed muzzle, is 538 foot-pounds of energy per square inch. That beat everything except for the 357 Magnum. But now let's talk about the second number, and if the second number is to be believed, and it could be an accident because it did nick the chronograph as it was doing this, but it's also not outside of the realm of possibility. The second number being that same 200 grain moving, Freedom Seed. Freedom Seed, Susan. That same 200 grain Freedom Seed moving at 1,174 feet per second, I'm getting a foot poundage of 611 foot-pounds per square inch. That is pretty staggering with no modern day powder, I gotta tell you. So this wasn't some weird duplex load where I did something dangerous like put black and then put a little bit of smokeless on top of it. Some people do that. I don't want to do that. I don't think that you have to. I think that this stuff is actually giving you enough power, even in this shorter barrel, that you can just kind of safely use a black powder alternative that's not going to give you huge spikes in pressure that could cause these things to go boom boom. At no point was I actually, well, at the beginning I wasn't sure, but once I got testing, I said, hey, this thing's holding up just fine. It's a nice, strong. It's got a solid top frame there. The recoil wasn't bad because it is a full solid steel. It rolled up in my hand a little bit. That's to be expected. We're getting 600 foot-pounds there. That's pretty impressive. I gotta say, I want to do more testing of this. I've done a full video on this, but we did that in the rain, and we weren't getting the greatest results. We were doing more round ball. I didn't have my sight picture quite where it was. Well, my sight picture still killed the chronograph. Anyway, I'm going to do a part 2 on this thing with some more powerful rounds, and I'm going to be trying to develop my own, basically, I'll call it patented. Yeah, it's patented right here on YouTube. My own patented Magnum load for the Remington 1858. And we're also going to play around with some new friends of ours who's got on the show. Introducing the Colt 1860 Army, the slightly bigger brother to the 1851 Navy that was so popular. I was measuring these out before. Obviously, this one has a longer barrel, and it can be swapped out because it's very modular. It has different barrels. This chamber has slightly less powder capacity than the Remington, but not much. So this should be comparable to each other. There's a couple little differences. I'm sure one day we're going to do a head-on. I want to do a standard review on this, as well as some modifications to its aesthetic, because I want to give it a nice old-school aesthetic and maybe take off even some of the bluing and kind of mess with that. So, did we get this thing to punch above its weight class? I think we did. Can we call it a black powder Magnum? Well, at the lower ends of overall Magnum power, yes, I think it's fair to say we can. If we can compete with even a moderate 357 load, I think that really says a lot out of this quite antiquated piece of technology that you can still buy with cash at a lot of pew-pew stores around the country. So, once again, I've been Damien Darko for Band State Tactical, where it's not illegal if you don't get caught.